Wrestling Mainstream Podcast, a subsidiary of the Wrestling Underground Podcast, the YouTube side of things, as well as hosted, as always, by RealNerdCorp.com. I am your host for the evening. I like coffee, and maybe one day I'll like sleep just as much. I am Chad Porto, and joining me, as always, is my glorious co-host, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Yes, sir. Good. Glad to be here.
So usually what we do is we do a tandem recording. We do the mainstream side of things for the YouTube, and then we do a download where you can listen to the more obscure wrestling news. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, I have not been able to do my job for the site and watch all the pertinent things that we need to watch. I haven't even watched Impact yet. Okay, it just ended, so it's like not a huge thing. So we're going to be recording everything for Thursday, so we'll update that as needed. But if you want to listen to the download, you can come back here on Thursday, or if it's Friday or next week, I don't know, you can just click down below. It'll already be there. Or you can just go to realnerdcorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com. Marcus, let's get into the news. As always, since this is the mainstream podcast, we talk about the mainstream wrestling scene, which is WWE, New Japan, and AEW. Everything else goes in the underground. Marcus, Roman Reigns doesn't like CM Punk. He's got a new vestless look. Is Roman Reigns starting to become the guy that fans need him to be?
Yeah, after God knows how many years, and apparently, a tone that you would imagine at Vince's age, certain things start to wane anyway. But him being tone deaf is certainly one of them. Yeah, I mean, look, it feels like he's in terms of Roman, all his potential is kind of being fulfilled, and with this gimmick, he looks, you know, straight hoss, like just probably the best physical shape I've seen him in. And obviously, still got hints of stuff with the Shield, but him changing his whole demeanor, his mannerisms, his vernacular, if you will. Obviously, like you said, going shirtless, and apparently he's going to switch that music finally. As I guess as things draw out. Yeah, it finally feels like he's getting on a track that people can finally get behind, which is ironic. Now, him finally going fully heel, because it felt like after the whole thing with his health and the combination of him, basically telling the company to screw you during the whole COVID thing, that it may have been the one time where everybody kind of got behind the guy in terms of him being a face. So some iron there, but yeah, feels like they finally know what they're doing with him for now.
I think the ironic thing is fans are finally on the Reigns bandwagon, but I kind of have to ask a simple question. Why is it when he becomes a heel that fans are willing to support him? Why are we going with this idea that being a heel is cool as opposed to just having someone who is what he is and choosing to either like or boo him? Like the idea of contextualized faces and heels, I think is a passé thing. I think having a guy who has a specific mannerism, a specific set of edicts and ethics, and either showcases those or betrays those is the only real concern we should have. We saw what the WWE did with Big Show with his 36-14 fucking turns in 20 goddamn always. Like, we know that face and heels no longer have the same emphasis now as they did before, because back then you would be a heel your whole career. You would be a face your whole career. No one's ever like, hey, let's turn Jake Roberts into a face. They're like, no, Jake Roberts is a heel. He's a shit heel, and he's great at it. And no one's like, hey, what would be great if we made Steamboat into a villain? No, Ricky Steamboat was the ultimate good guy. What are you doing? So this need to jump guys face and heel and then make them cooler when they become heels is also kind of passé. I think you could have done all this shit with Reigns. Drop the body armor, have him just be a badass. You didn't need to put him with Paul Heyman. I pitched this idea to you, I think, more times than I can count, where it's just like, make him Goldberg. Have him say very little. Have him kick ass and leave. Like, that's it. Like, if you have guys who can sell for him, like, holy hell, he'll look like a badass. Kind of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like I said, it feels like everything's clicking right now in the moment, but I am wondering what's the longevity of it in terms of his competition because this is working right now in a really great way coming off of some Night of Champions because he's blending in the whole thing with the Samoan thing and he's calling himself the tribal chief, being the head of that, you know, great lineage of his, saying that he provides for the whole family, and him going and taking out basically his younger brother in a way with Jay, and those factors work so well together. But like, how long can you can't necessarily have a reign worth of Jay Uso feuds. That's go, because it's like they the only people that he can battle right now in his family. Obviously, you got Dwayne, and heard some people talking about like, is that the ultimate goal here? Because if he's saying he's the leader of the family, he's not even the biggest guy in the family in terms of notoriety. But it's like, okay, uh, can they even get Dwayne to come back at this point right now? And that's just off his schedule. So, and ain't no way in hell I'm finna be like, hey, stop filming Black Adam. No, no, stay where you are. Uh,
Mark is about to show up in riot gear outside the set of Black Adam by himself, going, get back to filming, Dwayne.
like, really? Where's my boy? No, 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 no. Get your ass back. In the
No, 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 no. Fight me.
Exactly. But yeah, like I said, it's working right now because of everything with the familial aspect of it. But I am looking to see because the minute they try to throw the fiend back at him, nobody's gonna give a damn. They're gonna appreciate him like being like a actually heel that you can get behind. But if you can't care about what he's doing in terms of a feud, it's not gonna matter. If you run him into a bunch of fiends and and Braun Strowmans, it's gonna be a complete waste of time. And Heyman's just gonna be standing there, kissing his ass until maybe we get Brock to come back, who may get jealous, which wouldn't necessarily make a lot of sense. But then again, they can kind of get Brock to do whatever he wants because he's, Brock. But we'll see. Like I said, I think to your logic with the babyface thing, maybe it works better with him as a heel because people felt like most of the stuff he was saying or doing as a face was heelish anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because the crowd was just so tired of having shoved down a throat, and he kind of had to fire back a lot of times. It also doesn't help when you forced to say "suffer and succotash"
Oh, God.
promo. So it's like, what can you do? It's almost like that he had no choice but to, go this route, and it makes sense. And for most people, well, for your average flat scan guy, if you will, what guy looks like that and isn't an a-hole, you know? So
I mean, I look like that, and I'm a definite asshole. Wait, what? One of those two statements isn't true. I'm definitely an asshole. Okay, so what you said makes a lot of sense. I had another point to make, but now it's gone. Oh well. Let's talk a little bit about Clash of Champions. When I say talk a little bit, I mean talk a little bit. Marcus, you have 10 seconds. Describe Clash of Champions in a single sentence or word. Go.
it's a two-match show, straight up and down. The ladder match and the main event. And if you say otherwise, you're either deaf, dumb, blind, or all three. There you go.
I think that was 12 seconds, but we'll count it as 10. The one thing I've noticed about these pay-per-views is that they're no longer star-studded. For whatever reason, either because the WWE doesn't want to, or because they just don't have any. Like, they're putting on a lot of mid-card fights, a lot of mid-card matches. I remember what I was going to say before. But yeah, I'll get back to that here in a second. With the pay-per-views, though, I just feel like there's a lot of acts that don't have any legitimacy in terms of drawing power. Maybe I'm that disconnected from the WWE product specifically, but with all
No,
due respect, do people care about Andrade, Angel, and the Street Profits?
no, look, man, no, it's funny how spot on you are about this stuff, and you literally are casually dropping in. That speaks to the extreme lack of creative in their the creativity in their creative. The reason why none of this stuff feels big is because they've drained it all they've literally the horses died and they're literally just like dosey doing around the corpse with some of these feuds. Like the Street Profits have been feuding with those two since before Mania.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And the fact that they brought that up on the pre-show, and so it's like between that and it's like Zelina Vega, who like is cool as she is, she works great as a manager. She's okay in the ring, but if anybody's not ready for Asuka, it's her. Specifically when you got somebody like Bianca Belair around, I guess you can go find in the main event community, but and not that main event. I'm talking about the show. Um, yeah. So when you drain feuds to death on your weekly shows, and then you try to put them on the pay per view, it's not gonna matter worth a damn. That's why, like I said, it's a two match show. It was a two match show. The ladder match, which on paper, you know, uh, was a showstopper, and then they showed up and showed out. Jeff needs to go ahead and retire. The bumps he's still taking at this point is utterly is just insanity. Um, but yeah, like I said, you casually dropping in and you can tell that this stuff has no weight to it, and I don't know if a lot of it has to do with the fact that these things are just so close together. Like I don't know how many shows these pay-per-views we're getting, but it feels like maybe two every month. It almost feels like just because of how rapid they're putting them out. But again, it don't matter because we're seeing most of these matches 50 times within the span of a month building up to these shows. So it makes no sense.
Okay, I'm about to combine two topics into one, and I think I'm going to impress even myself. I'm not even dropping in, Marcus. I am being a peeping Tom, right? Like, I'm not even walking in. I'm just looking through my binoculars going, so that's how they do it in their family. Fucking quoting Ferris Bueller. I think about how successful something like mixed martial arts is. And I bring this up a lot because I think at one time the MMA community copied a lot of pro wrestling. And now it's time for pro wrestling to copy MMA. You look at Bellator, you look at UFC, the two things that they often do is they have multiple shows in a month or in a week. In Bellator, it's back-to-back on Fridays and Saturdays. And usually the card will be like, main event guy versus main event guy. And then the rest of the main card is like, guys you might know if you pay attention. And then the undercard's like, maybe they'll be relevant next week or next month or in a year. And like you get two shows like that. So you get two pretty big fights, 6 kind of, okay, I think I know that guy fights. And then like 24, oh, okay, fights. Like I don't know who that is, but like he did like a spinny thing and that's cool. WWE, maybe should try that model where they're not putting out every main star every fucking day. They're going in the opposite direction where they want Charlotte on every week instead of saving her. Because when you save people like that, when you save the Brock Lesnars, their appearances matter so much more. So if you go 2 weeks without seeing someone, or even better yet, 3 weeks without them wrestling, when they get in the ring, it's all that much more important. With the UFC, they do usually 3 shows a month. At least currently, that's what they're doing with the pandemic. And they do one for ESPN Plus, which is like a subscription-based service, one for ESPN proper, and then another for ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So like you have to have the ESPN Plus app, and then you have to pay the $60, $70 to get the pay-per-view. And they put out their product in a way where the free show might get you a 40-year-old veteran who's kind of popular still and might win a fight in the main event. The ESPN Plus is the upcoming guy who's kind of popular and you're probably going to want to tune in and see. And then the main event fight is your Khabibs, your Connors, your George St. Pierre's, your Stipe Miocic, John Jones, Israel Adesanya's kind of. So like they tier it out in terms of when you should tune in and how big the names are going to be on each show. That's another idea that WWE could use. I do like the brand split because it's supposed to offer up more, but they're not doing it so, obviously. But you could do that in a sense where if you're going to have SmackDown, you only ever have X guys wrestle. If you're going to have a pay-per-view or whatever they're calling it, a month, Save those big names. Save Roman Reigns only for your SummerSlams, your Paybacks, your Clash of Champions, your WrestleManias. That gives you an idea on how important he is. You can still pop up and do like guest commentator spot or cut a promo, but he shouldn't, in a 4-week month, he shouldn't be on every week. That's how you build up the desire to see him. You build up anticipation to see him. Vince does not realize this and still books like it's 1970. And every time I see a fan on the internet go, "Oh, Vince is a genius," I go, "No, he's not. He's 40 years behind the curve." So if you want to update things, that's how you update it. And I think about the way MMA updated from pro wrestling, where they started bringing gimmicks and shticks and whatnot. And this is going back to the original point that I was going to make last segment, where they had someone like Chuck Liddell. Buzz cut, tattoos, icy trunks, looked unique, looked original. He wasn't a good guy. He wasn't a bad guy. If you liked him, you liked him. If you didn't, you didn't. But he was a knockout artist, and that was his selling point. Granted, it was also his fighting style, but still the selling point. And it became a really big thing. And if you limit the amount of people, per episode of Raw and SmackDown, if you limit the amount of appearances per month that you're putting these superstars out there, and you're starting to actually highlight the things that make these people relevant, you will be able to surpass and, evolve past the 1975 era booking, and you wouldn't be so reliant on faces and heels and turns and swerves. You'd be able to actually have a less ran out product with less ran out storylines, and your appearances from your bigger stars would be so much more impactful. So that's just the way I think they should go about it, but I don't know if they ever will. Even if Vince leaves, like, Triple H is like spam buttoning NXT with all the big names and all the big matches on all the shows, not even just the big ones. Like, you'll see a match of the year contender on NXT, and I know people are like, "Well, that's a good thing." It's not, actually. Because unlike pro football, where it's, a real sport and you don't know what's going to happen, with wrestling, we know it's predetermined. So we know that there's only so many ways they can go about it. And since WWE books the way they book, there's only so many combinations of a finish they can come up with. So having these big matches all the time deludes the value of not just the wrestlers, but the matches themselves. So do less, bitch. That's it. I like that I was able to weave in both those ideas, because the Chuck Liddell fucking character idea was supposed to be used last segment.
Look, look, man. You summed it up perfect. We talked about this when he debuted, about how they could and shouldn't book him, and they've made Nakamura so regular.
Oh God.
And I'm in the process of getting through the G1, and I'm just thinking all he would have to do is just drop back in for something like the G1, and he's back to OG status instantly.
I have my concerns about that. I definitely respect the idea. My concern with anyone going to the WWE is that you carry such a stigma of failure with you when you leave. Like, it's one thing to be a John Moxley, right? John Moxley bounces out, Cody bounces out, maybe even Leo Rush and ACH, because apparently they're going to be facing each other, I think, at a Warriors wrestling event or something like that, or GCW, I don't remember which. But like, maybe you can reinvent yourself, but when you get to a certain point, especially if you're a big time star, you go to the WWE and you come out after a disasterful run, what's that look like? And right now with EC3, I'm still kind of like, I'm still gauging that. I don't see him back to the level he was before he left. Partly because he hasn't wrestled. But I'm very curious to see what EC3 will look like. I'm very curious to see what, should Nakamura ever leave, which I think it's very likely, because I have to imagine his passion for this company is gone. His passion for the business is gone. What will someone like Nakamura, or if Lashley leaves to go back to MMA, what will we think of these guys who were utterly bastardized? I don't know, Like, it's one thing to like get fired from development to like CJ Parker or Derek Bateman, and then you go and reinvent yourself. But to have that name value distorted, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because in real, to go through it real quick, it's funny because we see so many people trying to control certain narratives or come up with certain narratives when it comes to obviously the mainstream media and whatnot. But you look in a smaller bubble like wrestling, and we, I guess, go in out of talking about this a lot. Like, there's this perception that even if you had a Ziggler run in WWE, just because you were there, that was a win. And I don't, and a lot of wrestlers weave in and out of that. Like, I don't know, obviously to me, Kurt Angle could have been uh, left Impact on those years and went back to WWE for whatever reason. But to me, the company probably extended his wrestling career and saved his life with everything he had going on. Um, I feel like that in a lot of ways the same thing with Jeff Hardy because they put up with a lot that I don't think WWE would have done it all with stuff that was going on. So, but to me, he also had a better plethora of matches than he would have in WWE. So, but if you ask him, he might say otherwise. I don't know why. But you look at somebody like Christian, and I think he had a better run in TNA than he did when he was in WWE. But maybe that's more comparative because he got to do more when he came back than Angle did. But um, I don't know. If you look at somebody like Lashley, I don't think it's debatable. He was an actual world champion. Like, he probably, if Lesnar was in Impact, they'd probably still be feuding right now or something like that. So it's always interesting to me. I think some of these wrestlers, I guess their narratives change about the factual optics depending on how many zeros are on the check or how many
Mm-hmm.
commas are on the check. Because it's like, well, I'm getting paid like a world champion. Who cares if I'm the new 24/7 champion? I'm like, the only person that can really say that and it actually not sound like complete idiocy is all truth.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Th-
So
there are different levels, I think, to success with regards to characters. You look at the Ron Killings or Tommy Dreamer, their time in WWE was successful because you knew they were never going to be used the way they were elsewhere. Someone like Lashley, his U.S. mid-card title run, no, not successful because I think he only had 2 losses in MMA, and he was a world champion in Impact, and he was the face of the company for 2 years. But when he went to WWE, we had all these hopeful expectations and nothing. So there are tiers to success within the company, and you don't need to necessarily be a headliner to have a successful career. You look at someone like Dana Brooke. I'd say she's had a successful career just because of the simple fact that she still has a job. But then you look at someone like Asuka, who was built up to be something so special and then spent 4 years or 3 years doing nothing. No, I would say Asuka's had a very poor career. But I know they're trying to rejuvenate her now, but still. So there are tiers to that.
yeah.
So speaking of tiers, let's talk about the only house party that I think is going to be interesting for the rest of the year, and that's the Mysterio house party.
Oh God.
So Ray is, I don't know, and Dominic is, I guess, okay. But here's the thing: wrestling is a performance. We talk about this so much. And last night they had this segment where Dominick and Aaliyah, is that her name?
Yeah.
Had a confrontation during a Buddy Murphy match. WWE did this whole thing where they showed a bunch of text messages from Buddy to Aaliyah, and fucking Seth was involved somehow, I guess. I don't know. I got all these through clips, so I'm just trying to piece it together the best I can. But it eventually culminated in a match with Dominic and Buddy that I guess Dominic was winning until Aaliyah accidentally interfered and cost him the match. Dominic then decided he was going to go all Tommy Dreamer on Buddy's face. Why is Buddy Murphy's name Murphy? That is the worst wrestling name I can think of. Like, Smasher Toes McGee would be a better fucking name. But when Dominic went to go beat up Smasher Toes, Aaliyah was like, no, don't do it. He's not like Seth. He's different. And Dominic's like, yeah, you need to know what he did to our family. I'm doing this to protect us. And I'm sitting here going, I've seen better acting in fucking preschool plays.
I thought you was about to mention Lynch. I was like, no.
Yes. I've seen better acting in Clara Lynch segments. At least there was viable emotion on her face. It's yours, AJ.
Yeah, that segment also greatly helped by that damn phenomenal plush bear toy.
Right? And Frankie and Daniels just being shit-eating, grin-tastic heels. Ah, adorable. But, like, not every... Like, all right, so we have to acknowledge, it's like, sometimes there are genuinely good surprises that come out of bringing your family on board. Vicky Guerrero was never a great God damn it, speaker. I was trying to think of the term auditor or audirator. I don't think those are correct. Orator. There it is. Thank you, Marcus. Orator. High five. Tag team. Bam. Hit the doomsday device. She was never a great orator, but she had a great charisma about her. She really didn't mind getting booed, and she just had this beloved thing where we knew she was terrible. She knew she was terrible, but we were all okay with it. And then you think of Karen Angle. Karen Jarrett, literally brought in off the streets, hypothetically, and just became a smash performer for like 2007 to like 2011. She was fantastic. So we know that sometimes family members can get involved and actually be good. Senor Benjamin. But then we also know that sometimes the family members just suck so hard, like the Devon twins.
Yeah, Lashley sisters.
I was going to say John Laurinaitis. People power. So sometimes family can come in and work, sometimes family can't. Now, listen, Dominic as a worker, he's solid. He's young, he's inexperienced, but he's solid. As a promo?
Yeah.
Whoo!
It's just interesting talking about, obviously, depending on how they go with this, the optics are going to be interesting in terms of, because, we're in the era of critique everything.
Yep.
And, some people are going to flip about, Buddy's 32 and little Aaliyah's 19. And, yeah.
To that I say, you don't get to force your morality on someone. As long as it's not in the face of legality, they're fine.
Yeah.
If she's got a daddy fetish or a daddy complex, let her work it out. If he's into the co-ed thing, hey, more power to him.
And this is, and I look at this, I'm like, first, like you said, it's not in the realm of illegality, but this is also in the company of the man that's ran by the man who was legitimately, I think, pushing to do a storyline with his own daughter in which she was going to come up pregnant for him.
Vince McMahon's bumper sticker says incest is the best. So, what did you expect?
First you get the daughter pregnant, and then you die.
And then you die. Speaking of dying, I don't know how Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose continue to survive. They debuted on Raw as a tag team. And listen, two buxom blondes, no problem there. That's a tag team I can get behind and in front of and to the side and under and on top of. Assuming everything's, on board, up and up, and there are permissions granted. But as a wrestling tag team, they make about as much sense as tuna and peanut butter. Don't know it. Don't want to try it. There is no logical ending to this to make sense, that this would be an okay thing. Like, tuna and peanut butter is just a bad idea.
Yeah, who's your boy, Anthony Bowens?
Love me some Anthony Bowens.
Anthony Bowens and cheeseburger. The fuck?
I would drop Anthony Bowens from my MySpace top 10 if he did that.
Although, I desperately do want some type of storyline one day where somebody is literally mocking the hell out of AJ Styles, and they do the thing where they bring out a mock version of the opponent, and they hit AJ Styles music, and Hornswoggle comes out. I want it.
If Impact had been able to afford AJ, you could have literally done an EC3 AJ Styles feud where EC3 made North Furnham do that. That would have been great. Remember how great North Furnham was before he decided to lose all his hair and grow a stupid mustache and join AEW? I do. Oh, well. So, Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke are not great in the ring. Dana's all right. Dana has come a long way. I wouldn't call her great, though. I think she's really hindered by the WWE formulaic, we're going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it process. I think if she were in a more open, call it in the ring kind of situation, I think she'd be a lot better. But, as far as an aesthetical appreciation, yeah, love this pairing. As far as an in the rings, no, it's not good. It's not good. Brother, it's not good. It's tuna and peanut butter. It's not good. Just hard noping. Any thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I was thinking that as a potential pro, maybe they could hide each other's flaws and highlight the pros. But that's assuming they gel off the bat, and I didn't see them out the gate. But like you said, in terms of them having them having longevity in terms of being employed, you hit it off the back. That fucks them and they're blonde, and that's a winning combination in any scenario of events. So
It's kind of one of those things where you look at them and you're like, you have the same flaws. So what exactly am I supposed to do here? I am confuzzled. So let's move on to New Japan. Actually, let's move on to James Storm real fast, and then we'll go to New Japan. So James Storm talked to the Pro Wrestling Sheet. That's Ryan Satan's little blog, and revealed that he was supposed to debut for the WWE at WrestleMania, but he was originally approached to show up for the Royal Rumble. But he was still working with the NWA, and he wanted to do business the proper way and drop the belts to whoever before he officially signed on with the folks over there at WWE. It says, quote, I get home and I see an email from Canyon Sermon saying, hey, we're interested. Paul Heyman wants me to reach out and bring you to Raw. I was like, wait, I think Bobby is going to Raw. That could be interesting, So he ends up declining at first at the Royal Rumble and, sets up to drop the belts, but ends up having the COVID outbreak. And then, I think they wanted to bring him in anyway, but he didn't want to come in at the time due to the COVID situation. And his desire to do the right thing with NWA and drop the belts properly was a big thing of contention for him. Not contention, but a big thing of emphasis for him. And I think even Billy Corgan was like, yeah, that's fine. If you want to go to WWE, go ahead. So, everything was on board. He was doing business the right way. Everyone was handling their business with him the right way. So, everything was going good. And then COVID pops up, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope. Sorry. So, Marcus, I gotta ask, do you think James Storm would have done any better in WWE than he has in other companies since leaving Impact?
no, honestly, no. I mean, I like James Storm and everything, and I think he was building some momentum up in NXT, but that wasn't. It was literally like bubbling, if anything, because he was having kind of these one-off matches that was basically a bunch of warm-ups to show people what he could do. But he did dig in great shape, which I imagine hopefully he's still in. I haven't seen him in a while, but I've always liked James Storm. I just can't see. I mean, to me, by now, he's either not on the show consistently, probably in the main events, something like that, or he's one of the guys running behind R-Truth.
Yeah.
If he hasn't fell into some type of faction or something, or a tag team, or he might have been one of the offshoot partners for Cesaro. We know that's a revolving door at this point. So, to me that's the ceiling, unfortunately.
I think the interesting thing is that he goes on to say that James Storm actually signed a contract with the WWE, but WWE put the contract on hold and pulled it due to the issues with hiring when the pandemic started. He says that that he talked to them in July, but things hadn't changed. But he's optimistic that he and former Beer Money partner Robert Roode will be able to work again together in the WWE. I don't know if there's really any point in James Storm and Bobby Roode, partnering up in WWE. Beer Money was such a successful tag team that to try to do it in the WWE would be a shame. Roode has become just a joke. And they'll do the same thing to Beer Money as a tag team. This is also kind of interesting to note that when he was, talking to the WWE, in July, there were all the rumors about him possibly showing up at Slammiversary. Obviously, we now know that that was never going to happen. I don't know what to make of all this in terms of what we can expect from James Storm. But I will say that, at least Storm still has, people interested in him. And if the WWE doesn't want to sign him, I'm sure someone else will.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be, disgusted or anything if he showed back up in Impact, but I think he works better in an environment like, like much like Eli Drake in the NWA, or like I said now in the Impact, because they have more ability to show themselves, um, confidently as who they are, not necessarily needing to go off a script or anything and kind of doing their own thing. Um, as he could come off severely corny being micromanaged when he clearly has been doing that same character in maybe different certain little aspect pockets throughout his entire career. And like, what version of Beer Money would they even try to do in WWE? So, you know, yeah, I'm glad people are still interested in him. But to me, either him staying in NWA, maybe popping up in Ring of Honor, who knows? But if you pop back up in Impact, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing. It might shake things up in a unique way. Who knows?
It will be interesting if that should happen. Lastly tonight, Harold Meij, the president and CEO of New Japan, has announced that he will be departing the company next month in October. In a statement released by New Japan, it was revealed that God damn, here we go again. Takami Obari, who is presently CEO of New Japan America, will take over from Meij as the new president and CEO of New Japan starting from October 23rd and on. Meij, who was also appointed president of New Japan in May of 2018, wrote a blog on New Japan's website and apologized to fans for resigning during the ongoing G1 Climate event. He had previously served as senior VP of Coca-Cola Japan. No word as of right now given as to why he's resigning. I don't know what the Japanese version of Me Too is, but maybe he got Me Too'd. I don't know. I'm going to Google to see if there's anything about it beyond this article. Marcus, what's your initial takeaway from Meij resigning?
Yeah, was he just like he was like over all Japan or just
Yes,
not
overall.
like all Japan? Oh, gotcha. So, I mean that's interesting. I mean we don't really hear a lot about a lot of people stepping down unless they like absolute retire or something. And when it comes to Japan, whether it be performers or people in the high up, so that's interesting. Maybe his interests are just like elsewhere. Do we know how long he held a position?
It's just 2 years. He came in 2018, and he'll be resigning in 2020.
Interesting. Maybe maybe his interests just lie elsewhere, or maybe like you said, something came up and they he trying to cut bait, if you will, but before things could have got serious. But that's interesting. Just because you just don't hear a lot of it, like it's not like the second hand position or the right hand in a creative position like the Pritchards and the Paul Heymans have been through recently in WWE, which is a revolving door. At this point, Bruce, you should be on your pins and needles because being hired and being fired is basically the entire WWE gimmick. But yeah, that's interesting.
It seems to be that there was a desire for Meij to break $100 million in profit in one article. At least that's what it says. And they're obviously not going to hit that with all the issues going on in Japan and the lack of income for a lot of the year. So his desire to take the job may have been more of a personal kind of goal, help New Japan hit that mark and then step away. And when that became clear that he wasn't going to be able to do it, maybe he decided that, he had other interests. Because he was not a wrestling fan. Like, let's be clear. Like, this dude was not brought in because he was a big New Japan fan. He was brought in because they were trying to expand into America. He was bilingual. And they thought that he would be able to help develop the American market as well. And when that obviously did not become a thing, I think what ended up happening was he decided that he would rather go into an environment that he better understood. That's my belief. That's not something I'm reading.
Yeah.
I did read that he wanted them to hit $100 million in profit, though. And I think that's what spurred his desire to resign when he knew that they weren't going to be able to hit it.
Yeah, I mean that's a really great point. All I was all I can add to it is like, yeah, I mean if you don't have a lot of if you don't if you're already not interested in what's the core behind, like we know, Vince is spiteful of the driving force behind his business, which is the wrestling portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with New Japan, they actively, that's the point. That's why people love it so much. And if you don't care about that, if something comes up like this, it's like I don't even care enough to try to make this work. So if he's not even interested enough to try to pivot to see how he could, I guess, reverse engineer in a lot of ways how he could build towards that profit in a COVID setting, which is very hard in general. I mean, your audience is your moneymaker, and if you don't have that, so what are you gonna do? And if he don't care enough to try to rework that business model that he had originally, then I think that's probably better for both sides, because why would you want somebody that's not really inherently invested in the foundation of what the business is in the first place?
And that's definitely something to consider. The other thing to consider is this might have been a more of a corporate, hey, we want you to resign or we're going to fire you type of situation, because when Mize took over the company, they were on Access TV in the States. When Impact bought Access TV, the desire to continue the relationship ended. And New Japan, I don't think, has aired on Access TV in almost a year at this point. And I think the lack of American television hurt them severely with growing the market in the U.S. And I think that might be a reason, on top of everything else, that could have facilitated his departure. Them blaming him on not having a second TV option available.
Mm.
Let's see. I want to Google this. Let's see. New Japan no longer doing business on Access TV December 27th, 2019. So that may have been a catalyst as well, them not being able to get on another market in the U.S. I don't know if there was any options available to them, but,
Yeah.
it is what it is. By the by, Marcus, we have a new champion in the NWA crowned over at the United Wrestling Network. We'll talk about that on Thursday, though.
Okay.
Well, they're not going to listen live, but we'll have a download available for you on Thursday, though. So you and I will probably record around 8 my time, 7 your time. Does that work? Or do you want to go at 9 my time, 8 your time?
Yeah. The now your time works.
Okay. So then expect the show to be up Friday morning. We'll talk about Primetime Live, Ring of Honors, Pure Division. I think someone got upsetted. We'll see what that is. Thursday's Friday morning show will also include RVD Gone from Impact, Bound for Glory Week all set, as well as Dylan James Redine, who was a big wrestler in Evolve, and then he went to All Japan Pro Wrestling for a while. Made his MMA debut, and boy, did it go badly.
Yeah. But I got caught up on Impact. Speaking of Impact, I got caught up, and Heath Slater's kids. It's the
Adorable.
most adorable thing I've seen all year.
Right? Adorable. I like how they were calling out Scott D'Amore.
Yeah, they were like, "Yeah, Scott, do." I'm like, did they cut? Was that their promo? Or did they get told to do that? Because that very much seemed like they just let them riff, and if they did, they need to hire them maybe even before their dad.
Aaliyah Mysterio can't string together 2 sentences without going. You got a 9-year-old, Ginger going, "Yeah, Scott, stop being a pansy bitch." She didn't actually say pansy bitch, but still.
Basically, that was the promo. He summed it up. Ah.
We'll talk more about that on Friday morning show. It'll be up on the website, realnerdcorp.com, realnerdcorp.com. Be sure to check us out on our personals. Marcus, you can be found over on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
On his other podcast as well, at The True Penny Show over on Twitter at True Penny Show, TruePennyShow. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdcorp, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut, ChadSphotoHut. If you need any links, if you need any direction, if you need anything else, go to our website, realnerdcorp.com. Tomorrow we have a new Wrestler of the Week. We have a new Woman Crush Wednesday coming out, or Woman Crush Weekly. We also have finally, after nearly a year, the next issue of our comic is coming out tomorrow as well. Zach finally got it to me. It was supposed to be in a month ago, whatever. And it's awesome. I love it. We introduce a new character, and he's clotheslining the shit out of people. Tune in. It's amazing.
I just love how we could basically just call this the COVID chapter because we just took an earlier break than the world, I guess.
Basically, the COVID arc. It's great. So tune in Friday morning. We'll have more wrestling content for you over at realnerdcorp.com. For Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us. Thanks for giving us a chance. Watch more wrestling as always. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.